Good afternoon. It's lovely and sunny outside. I'm still sitting in my living room in West Clarendon, funnily enough. And today I wanted to post about a question that many of you have got regarding what happens if my tenant can't pay their rent. I've been gleaning information from a number of different sources over the last couple of days. And as confirmed by the one of the Arla solicitors this morning, rent is still legally due. There has been no rent payment holiday announced by the government, and legally your tenants are contracted to pay the rent. They don't have such a legal agreement with their credit cards, with any loans they've got, but when it comes to rent, that does have to be paid. Now, the whole idea of this huge raft of financial help that the government have offered is to keep tenants in their homes and keep people in their homes. The help is out there for help for people paying their rent and paying for food. So there are a number of ways in which the government have been helping, and you might have watched the Martin Lewis money saving expert briefing last night at 8:30 on ITV. If you haven't seen that, it's well worth watching that, because he talks a lot about the help for the self-employed and for employed people under the new furlough system. So essentially, if your tenant says they can't pay the rent, then there are a number of different steps that we're going to take before it gets to that point when the rent doesn't come through. I think the important thing is that tenants understand that rent arrears will accrue, and at the end of this, if they are in rent arrears, they may face losing their home, and it is not a payment holiday. Depends on the agreement you come to with your tenant, but essentially we need to educate your tenants that this is debt that's going to need to be paid back. And I think people really need to understand that, because it's all very well deferring the rent, but what's going to happen in 3-4 months' time when they have a huge debt to pay back? So we've got a number of questions we're going through with our tenants. Hasn't really hit us yet, and I think people have not had time to cancel their standing orders for this month, and so we are expecting rents to come through as normal. We get a big bunch of rents at the end of the month. So if people ask, a few questions we should be discussing with them. One, have they been laid off or have they been furloughed? If they've been furloughed, they need to, it needs to be done through their employer, and the government have now issued furloughing advice to employers, so they need to have been on the PAYE system as of the 28th of February in order to qualify. So if they've been laid off, they need to go back to their employer to see whether they can be furloughed. Martin Lewis explains that very clearly, by the way, better than I can. Do they have any loans? Do they have credit cards? Are there other things they can get payment holidays from in order to free up money to pay the rent? Is there now somebody staying with them while they self-isolate who may have some money that can be put towards the rent? If they are asking for a deferred payment, is that sensible in the sense that how are they going to pay that back in due course? We do have an expenses sheet which we can give them, which then they can set out costs that they've got at the moment, and it may be they're sitting on savings and just are not aware that they've got that money. Not everybody is financially savvy. We will be encouraging people to go to universal credit. That's something that is, I think they've been overwhelmed. I think they've had, when I last heard, there were about 500,000 applications had gone in this week, and they are putting more staff in to help with that. But anyone can claim for universal credit, and they've now obviously with the help with the self-employed as well. So I would ask people to look at the money saving expert tip, because it seems that the majority of people, they reckon something like 95% of people, if they're struggling, will get help. So we would need to get evidence that people have been laid off, for example, and then we would be talking to you on an individual basis. But I would say that if your tenant isn't asking for anything at the moment, I would just keep it on hold. I would just wait and see what happens. If you feel you want to do something to help your tenants, by all means you can offer them a rent reduction, but that may be on the basis that you write off the balance of that rather than putting them into debt. So I would take each case on an individual basis. I think, as Rishi Sunak said, the Chancellor, he said that we will be judged on how we deal with this. And I think there is a huge moral obligation to landlords to be understanding of tenant situation. But in the meantime, taking into account that you don't want your tenant to go into debt. So it is a fine line, it is very tricky, but we will be dealing with things on an individual basis. I hope that helps. If there's any more clarity you would like on some of those points, I don't want to make this video too long, then please write in as a post, and I will then clarify that on a separate issue. But I hope that gives you a little bit of information. Thank you.